Fishing Obsessed Podcast. We'll be sitting down with a fresh guest each week. Someone who shares the same kayak fishing passion that runs through our veins. We're talking kayak anglers, kayak companies, lure experts. Heck, anyone who's got a story to tell about landing the big ones from a kayak. We're setting our sights on becoming the #1 kayak fishing podcast in the world. You'll get a chuckle, a grin, and hey, maybe even a belly laugh. Because we believe in the power of humor. But above all, we're here to educate and inspire. So, whether you're a seasoned kayak angler or just dipping your toes into this exhilarating world, join us on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed Podcast. It's time to reel in adventure, camaraderie, and the joy of the catch. Here's your host, Darren Wendell.
What's up, you fish freaks? Welcome to the KFO show, Kayak Fishing Obsessed. If you love fishing or kayak fishing, just the community, you're in the right place. Tonight, I got Chuck Earls. We're going to be talking big water kayak fishing, cold weather kayak fishing, safety around kayak fishing, and how to catch big ones in open water. So this is going to be a good show. I'm pumped about that. He's in the green room. A couple housekeeping things. This show's brought to you by the Wendell Fishing YouTube channel. I think I just got notified. Just earlier today, I'm at 1,500 uploads. I do daily shorts, daily community posts, and I'm getting ready to throttle back this podcast to every week. I know during the fishing season, I throttled it back to every other week, but I'm going to throttle right back up. I got some really sick people already lined up through year end. World's Worst Fishing, Fish Vault, Deep Dive, Chad Hoover, Creek Fishing Adventures, Alex Rudd, and I just heard back from the Fluke Master. So I have a solid lineup of guests through year end, and we're going to end out this year. It's going to be pretty freaking sweet. If you're not on YouTube and you're like, hey, I'm on Facebook, and I got a group that really took off this year, Kayak Fishing Freaks, over 20,000 members. I'm getting ready to also make that a private group because the spam is getting insane, and all the controls I have to throttle up with AI is really making a lot of the members irritated, which I completely agree, because a lot of their stuff's being denied by AI because I have to throttle up so much. So I'm going to gatekeep that group. We're going to make that better than ever. I'm going to start talking with some other moderators to help me out because it's getting out of control, but it's a really great community. So head over there. Remember, this show, interactive show for those listening in live on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're coming in from. But I'd like to welcome to the show the one and only Chuck Earls. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, we've met before. I don't know if you remember this, but it was at the Columbus Expo last year. It was briefly. I mean, you meet a ton of people, I'm sure, at expos, so I didn't expect you to remember me. But I was like, you know what? I gotta get him on the show. He's right in my backyard. I live in Canton. He's north, probably an hour and a half, and does a lot of fishing on Lake Erie, which you would think I do, but I don't, because I got to pass like 17 really great lakes to get up there. So maybe one of these days, Chuck and I will get out on the water and he'll show me a thing or two and how to catch the bigs up there. But yeah, welcome. Now you were just, I want to hear this little story because I don't know much about it. But you were just down in North Carolina, correct?
Yeah. I just got back yesterday, actually.
Yeah. So tell me the story. You know, I mean, we all know hurricanes rip through. Now I don't watch the news a whole lot, so I mean, I see a lot of the things happening. I've been following your channel, so I saw some of the videos. But did you go down there with Yak Attack or to meet up with that crew? Explain how that all worked out. What did you see? What did you experience?
Well, it started out with Luther Cyphers, the founder of Yak Attack, made a post on Facebook, just looking for an opportunity to make the biggest impact in the most devastated area. And as soon as I seen that post, you know, my heart said, I need to be a part of this. I need to go down and help these people. You know, through life, there's always opportunities to make a difference like that, right? But maybe it's not the right time.
Yeah.
But this time there was no reason not to. So, you know, reached out to Luther. I told him, hey, whatever you figure out, whatever you put together, I'm in. I trust that guy. You know, I know he's got the plan figured out. So I just planned on showing up. And
Yeah.
when we finally went down there, we had 3 pieces of heavy equipment, and there was 10 of us, and
Okay.
we showed up and did as much as we can, or as much as we could for those in need. The challenge is there's so much destruction and damage. It's going to take them a long time to clean up, because that area, they got the water level actually raised. I think he said 39 feet.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, the last day before I left, it was kind of hard for me to leave, because I don't know, I just felt that the job wasn't done yet, right? And there is some things in the works in the future, but nothing set in stone, but good things to come. But what I did was I drove basically downstream, and just looked at some of the spots and some of the destruction, and you try to put yourself in other people's shoes. So there were bridges and roads just taken out. So after the storm had receded, after the flooding had receded, these people were basically stranded. They couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't get to the other side of the river. They basically had to manufacture alternative routes, because the road that they might have been taken doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There were a lot of vehicles, a lot of tractor trailers, 18-wheelers, and a lot of houses, a lot of debris. It was just it was a bad thing, and I could feel the community hurting. And when I got there, I expected to to see a lot of pain, but really what I seen was so much love. The community was just full of love, and there was people from all over that just felt the need to show up and do what they could to make a difference. So it was it really restored my faith in humanity, to be honest with you. And then we met this 7-year-old boy. I'm sorry, I think he's 8.
Okay.
Atlee. And first time he pulls up in this, nice side-by-side, packing. He had a little BB gun on his side. Which was kind of funny. But he got out, grabbed his machete and just started hacking away at some of this brush to get it into the burn pile, to start, because there was this giant pile of brush sitting there right on the road, where the road used to be. And here comes this little boy. Nobody's standing there telling him to. He just showed up to go to work. And throughout the day, like at one point, he just pulled up and brought out a case of water. He worked just as hard as, the 10 of us that showed up. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter how tired you were or how much you were hurting. That little boy wasn't quitting, so we couldn't quit either. And it was just a true inspiration. We're going to do some special things for that little boy, because he's going to do big things, but yeah, it was, I don't know.
Sounds like you were moved by what you saw, which is.
Yeah. And on Lake Erie, you see the true impact of like somebody losing their life and their family, not knowing where they are. There are times where it might take a couple of months for somebody to be recovered on Lake Erie. And in that environment, while we were there, I believe there was still 98 people missing.
Oh, wow. Just in that area or in general?
In that area.
Oh, wow.
And the cadaver dogs were coming by. They were pulling a car out of the ditch when I was pulling out, because the cadaver dog had hit on it. Nobody was found in that car. They could still be buried under the dirt somewhere. There was a horse that they found that was 5 feet under the ground.
Wow.
And I just think about how much pain the families that lose somebody to Lake Erie pain they deal with before that, in between, before that body's recovered and they get some closure. And it's just it's heartbreaking, but at the end of the day, you accept the things that you cannot change and change the things that you can, right? And the only thing that you can change is to just shine a little bit of light into people's lives and help out when you can, step up for the community, and just be the change that you want to be in the world. Because that's the only thing that we can really take with us and leave behind at the end of the day.
Well, I tip my hat to you. Thank you. And I don't know who the other 10 people were. I'm sure a bunch of people from Yak Attack and maybe some other people, driving in. And there's still a massive need. And so a lot of times when this stuff happens, people move on in their lives and forget the amount of devastation that's still there. We're talking months and months of cleanup still.
And, there's a great opportunity if you are looking to do something to help. We're not on the ground right now, so we don't really know the real needs. But I can pass you over John's number. One of the gentlemen that we worked with, he was a surveyor in the area for many years, so he's deep in the community. And you can always also join the Facebook groups. I think it's there's a town right outside Burnsville.
Okay, you're in Burnsville. Got it.
Yeah, if you search for the Facebook groups in that area, they will have real-time knowledge of like what you can actually do to make a difference. It might not necessarily be a bunch of donations like what they needed before, because I'll tell you, the United States has a huge heart, and everybody showed up for these people.
That's awesome.
But there's still challenges.
Yeah, I bet. And I'd love to talk a lot about that. It'd be easy to talk about the whole hour about that, but thank you for doing that. If anybody wants to get involved, reach out to Chuck or go where he said to go on these Facebook pages, and I'm sure there'll be an opportunity that you will find yourself coming across. You did mention something in that which I didn't even think about, because I don't hear about it often down here in Canton. But I mean, Lake Erie and these Great Lakes, when storm, I do know this because I swam across Lake Michigan back in 2000 and I forget what it was, 11, 50.6 nonstop miles. And so I knew all about Lake Michigan. And these Great Lakes, what you don't know about is they could become very treacherous very quickly, much faster than it happens in the ocean. And people underestimate. And so being that your livelihood is made on Lake Erie, what are the mistakes that most people are making, right? That they just don't realize. Is it overestimating their ability? Is it, of course, life jackets? Is it, being stupid? Are they drunk? What are the things that you come across often that's, one, heartbreaking, but two, these are lessons that we can learn, could save a life, save a friend's life, just because maybe we're not aware of it.
Right. I mean, first and foremost, I don't feel that anybody is stupid or trying to be, unsafe. I think, we just don't know what we don't know, right? There's things in life that teach us to wear our life jacket or to wear our seatbelt, or there's things that don't, we never experience. So they never learn that lesson, right? So that's why people like you and I, we talk about the life jackets and stuff just to spread the word, because you know what, our word might save your life. And if you decide to put your life jacket on, you find yourself in a sketchy situation, and you thank God that you were wise enough to wear that life jacket. But
really quick, before you move on from that, I can't tell you, and I'm sure you get it a lot, I can't tell you how many stories people write back to me. I'm probably in the hundreds by now. In the moment, and they're able to write the story because they're still alive,
right?
Because they decided to wear their life jacket, and they're really great swimmers, right? That has nothing to do with it, because they share the most bizarre things that happened, compounded with other bizarre things that happened that likely would have taken their life, but they're wearing their life jacket. And I can't tell you how many stories people tell me like that. It's wild.
Yep.
More than you think. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah. And most of the time, when they're not wearing their life jacket, they don't realize how strong the current is, or how cold the water is, or maybe how fatigued they are from the exhausting adventure they've been on. You know, and at the end of the day, they only suffer for a moment, but the family suffers for a lifetime. So find a good, comfortable life jacket that fits you nice, that maybe has some pockets, you keep your gear in, and just wear it. You know, put it on, get used to it. At the end of the day, if there's a way to save your life out there, why not use it? You know, utilize it. And the second thing is, in Ohio, you know, 6 months out of the year, the water temperature on Lake Erie, at least, is below 60 degrees. 60 degrees really is the magic number. You know, a lot of people are familiar with the 120 rule. 120
it's in the comments right now. Yeah.
Yeah, you could just take that rule and throw it in the garbage, because that's where it belongs. First of all, if the water temperature is 40 degrees and the air temperature is 80 degrees and you cannot get back out of the water into your kayak, you're still going to die. The outcome is still the same. So that rule, just disregard it. Focus on 60 degrees.
Explain the rule.
So basically, the 120 rule says if the air temperature plus the water temperature equals 120 degrees, then you don't need any thermal protection. You know, going back to that scenario, 40-degree water temperature, 80-degree air temperature, that's 120 degrees. But if you're offshore floating around, you can't get back in your boat or your kayak, or the boat sank and you're waiting to be rescued, you know, the outcome's still going to be the same.
Right.
So invest in a dry suit, just a good reputable brand, Kokatat, NRS, Stolik Hoist, Level 6, you know, somebody that makes a good quality dry suit. At the end of the day, you don't want to risk your life with a knockoff company off of Amazon, you know, that is just kind of getting on the dry suit craze. And it's not a craze. It's because people are becoming wiser and they want to make it back to their loved ones. So that's why, you know, people are buying dry suits. You see everybody in dry suits now, which is really cool. You know, I had to do a lot of digging when I first started to educate myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, I look around the community now and it's, you know, it's the butterfly effect. Everybody is just, you know, sharing the safety knowledge and looking out for each other, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a whole list of safety stuff that I take into account, but that's definitely the biggest. Next, I would say, you know, leave a float plan, let people know where you're going, where you're launching from. Maybe, you know, if it's your wife or something, you can give her the GPS coordinates. Don't trust anybody else with those. You know, you don't want to give away your fishing spots. No, but seriously, like you could go on the U.S. Coast Guard's website and leave a float plan there. You know,
you can. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
That way, you know, if they're looking for you, they at least know where to start.
Sure, and they can do the math on the way in and know exactly, roughly where you would be, right?
Yep. And you know, another thing to consider is, excuse me, 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right?
Yep.
So having multiple forms of safety gear or communication devices like your cell phone. Obviously, your cell phone is a main form. It's also a great resource to check the forecast and the radar, maybe the lightning map, the live weather buoys out there, you know, and get your knowledge. But if you're in distress, you need to let somebody know that you're in distress. You know, Lake Erie is a very big body of water. So if nobody's nearby, or if you don't have a flare or you don't have a signaling device that's loud enough or bright enough to reach, you know, the closest person, you know, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, it could be simple as just floating over to Canada, you know, and spending 3.5 days on the lake, like my neighbor Jerry Godig.
What? Tell that story.
Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you what. Let me go through the communication devices, and then we'll get into that story.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to forget about that story.
The next thing that I carry is a VHF radio.
Yep.
That way I can communicate with, nearby vessels or the Coast Guard. If I'm close enough, hopefully. They do have tall radio towers, but with a personal handheld VHF radio, it is limited. It's line of sight. So I followed that up with actually a personal locator beacon.
Oh, there you go.
That goes off the satellites. It's guaranteed to work, guaranteed to send your signal to the people that are going to come out and save you. And when they come out, you also have a homing signal. So as you drift, they can come get you.
It's pinging. Yeah.
And when my neighbor was lost out there, it was 30 years ago. So there was probably personal locator beacons or EPIRBs. I don't know how affordable or how available they were, but they didn't have one. So they were heading over to Put-in Bay for a walleye tournament.
Okay. In a kayak or boat?
No, they were in a 21-foot wellcraft.
Okay.
With a cuddy, like a little cabin in the front. And they had a big bag phone. That story is they set it next to the compass. I don't know. I've never dug into the frequencies or anything, but apparently the bag phone messed up the compass in some way.
Oh, jacked it up. All right.
Yeah, and then the fog rolled in, because it was springtime. The water temp was like 46, 47 degrees. The fog rolled in. The compass went out. They were all three young at the time. The captain of the vessel said, I've made this route, a million times. No big deal.
Right.
So he keeps going. Eventually, they run out of gas.
Oh, jeez.
And then they're adrift. So he gets on the bag phone. He's talking to the Marblehead Coast Guard, I think, trying to communicate with them, and they have no idea where these guys are. They don't have GPS location. They're struggling to find them, and it was, I think he said it was 3 to 5s. It was starting to get a little dicey out there. And it was colder. So there was some times where they actually had to call off the search for the night.
Oh, and, wow.
They were just adrift, or at one point, I believe they did drop anchor. But they didn't have any gear or anything like that on there. They had a cooler full of Jack Daniels beer and ice. So they actually ended up sucking on ice cubes to rehydrate themselves. No food, typical.
Just Jack.
Probably, I don't know, mid-20s, We all make mistakes when we're young.
I mean, it's funny now, not funny then. 3 to 5s, yeah. Those are no joke, right? That's a rough night, folks.
Oh yeah.
When I swam across Lake Michigan, it was 5s, and I was just going up and down in the waves for a few hours. It's not a good time.
Oh yeah. And it's wet, and if the at night the temperatures were dropping, so they were taking turns climbing in that cuddy just to try to warm up to fight off hypothermia.
Oh man, that starts getting scary real fast.
Oh yeah, and eventually they just drifted over to the Canadian shoreline to a spot where they could identify some landmarks, and the cuddy captain over there, or the charter, or the cuddy captain with the Canadian Coast Guard, recognized the landmark, and they finally were rescued.
3 days?
3.5 days, yeah.
That's terrifying for everyone around, right? Your parents at home and all. I mean, it's just, oh my gosh.
Into perspective,
yeah.
How big this body of water is. And that's why I carry that personal locator beacon, because, within 5 minutes of you setting that thing off, they know that you're in distress, and, they're already on the move. They know where you're at.
Yeah. Have you ever had to actually use one?
I have never had to use one in an emergency situation. I have accidentally
set
it off a couple of times.
What happens? Yeah, this is a little test. What actually happens?
Well, first thing that happens is your phone starts blowing up. You get a call from Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Coast Guard, probably the local law enforcement.
Oh wow!
They want to know, hey, are you okay? Well, first they ask if who you are.
Yeah.
and are you okay? And then they verify your GPS coordinates.
Got it.
And if you don't answer that phone call, or at least one of them,
They're going.
They're calling your emergency contact because that personal locator beacon is registered to me.
Okay.
And they're basically talking with them to come up with a plan of what to do. Is this like him? Does he usually, not answer his phone out there?
Right.
You think the phone went dead? You think he's okay? And your loved ones, your emergency contact knows you the best. They're going to say, no, I'm worried about him. I think you need to go out and look for him.
Right.
Especially if it's cold.
Right.
It's cold water. We lose people every year from the boats on Lake Erie. And from time to time we do lose kayakers, unfortunately. When I was in Portugal for the Kayak Fishing World Championship in 2022.
Definitely want to talk about that, by the way. Keep going.
We lost a young man out there.
No, in the tournament?
No, on Lake Erie.
Oh.
Yeah, I was
you were away. Got it.
When my phone started blowing up and I heard about the situation, but that was impactful as well because I do a lot of in-person seminars and a lot of safety stuff to keep people safe. And that guy, he launched 4-5 minutes from where I'm usually fishing. So it was somebody that was within my community that I didn't get the opportunity to get in front of. And if I would have, maybe he would have still been here. He had a young wife, young daughter. I mean, that's at the end of the day, for those of you listening, that's why we talk about that stuff, because we've seen it. We just want you to make it back. But you always want to prepare for that cold water.
Yeah. I mean, or is there a lesson to be learned here, or was it, or
with the kayaker? Yeah.
Yeah.
The wind had kicked up. I was overseas. I wasn't watching the forecast close like I always do, so I can't say whether it was forecasted that way or if it just changed.
Yeah.
But I've been told by many people that the forecast was forecasted to change 40 miles an hour out of the north. We're
wow.
on the shoreline, so even for the most experienced kayaker or boater, that's a messy situation.
Yeah, I'm out. No, thank you.
And he was in a sit-inside kayak, wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It was a warmer day. Air temperature was warm. Water temp was 47 degrees.
Oh wow.
The wind kicked up. His wife and his wife's friend made it back to shore. He flipped over, called his wife, said he couldn't get back in his kayak, and then the phone went dead. Probably had never practiced. Most people don't take that value of practicing. And I'll tell you what, if you go out there and you flip your kayak over on purpose once, you'll be amazed at the stability and the understanding that you get from doing that. You get intimate with your vessel. Like, about a month ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, had the dog out, and I had my phone tethered, but he was barking at me. I wasn't paying attention. I clipped it to one of the zipper pulls of my life jacket, and he was messing around. I finally pulled him back into the kayak. I lifted my leg to let him go by, and I got hit by a wave, and I fell off the front.
Okay.
I was back in my kayak in less than a second.
Right.
Maybe a half a second. Just it's muscle memory. Just because I practiced that so many times. I did end up losing my phone because it fell out of my pocket and I kicked it when I re-entered and pulled the whole zipper pull off. So that's a great lesson there. But back to the other gentleman, just not taking unnecessary risks and pay attention to the forecast. It doesn't matter what body of water you're going on, even rivers. Sometimes the river, we might have a lot of rain that's starting to blow out the river and you don't realize what the current is. So he was found, I think, 2 months later in New York, and his kayak was found in Canada. So
it was found in New York.
Yeah, in New York.
Currents took him up to New York.
Yeah. Well, Lake Erie replaces all the water inside the lake in every 2.6 years.
Got it. So it's moving pretty good click. That's a lot of water to move.
A lot of water. It goes right over Niagara, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, going back to the North Carolina thing, I remember the family just pleading anybody that was out there fishing, like, watch your radar, watch your sonar. If you see something, you know, say something. So fortunately, he was found, and hopefully, you know, he didn't die in vain, and some people learned from that situation.
Yeah, still learning to this day.
Yeah, you know, we just had another guy. I guess he flipped over, he got separated from his kayak, and didn't have his life jacket. I don't know if it was on the kayak or he didn't bring one at all. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many people go on Lake Erie without a life jacket or without even a thought. Just, I'm a good swimmer, right?
Yep, that's the excuse.
He spent 11 hours offshore
Treading.
Well, somehow, some way, a miracle, he came across a 5-gallon bucket.
Are you kidding me? He flipped it. Wow.
For 11 hours. And there's video footage of him trying to swim the shore, and the current ripping him back out.
Yep.
You know, because we do have live cameras along the lake shore. So that's a perfect example. Here's somebody that is healthy enough to survive 11 hours offshore, holding onto a bucket that he found probably after swimming a bunch in 70-degree water, you know, that couldn't even make it back to shore. And fortunately, he was found by a fisherman out by the Cleveland Crib, if anybody knows where that is. It's almost 4 miles offshore. And he lived to tell about it.
You know, that is amazing. Everything you just told me, one, it would never made it. Didn't find the rando bucket.
Right.
And two, a fisherman miles offshore.
Well, I mean, the Cleveland Crib is kind of a hot spot for perch and some other species at times. So it's definitely something that does have a little bit of traffic to it. But
wow,
I mean, just the 11 hours, you know, out there clinging. I'd really like to. I can't imagine what that guy's feeling. I'm sure it's going to take some time, but at some point, I'd love the opportunity to have him, you know, on my podcast and just learn from the situation.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I got some questions. There's some questions in here. Matt Dillon has a question. We've got a few of them here. One, Matt Dillon has a question for you. Chuck, we're going to hear about your spill. Now, I honestly don't know what he's talking about, but I'm sure you do. So, spill.
He's probably talking about my spill on the New River.
Oh, you're on the New River.
Yeah, so on the way back from North Carolina, Wade Clements from Yak Attack called me, and you know, I'd been in North Carolina. I hadn't been on social media, but Timmy Dixon was putting on a river cleanup down there. So I figured, you know, I might as well. It's on the way. I went over there and helped with that. And then the last day before we were heading back to Farmville, you know, we got out and did a little bit of fishing. And I thought it was, you know, I'm not a whitewater guy. I don't have any experience in that stuff, more than a couple of ripples. You know, I understand how the water moves offshore and stuff like that. But, you know, rivers, there's a lot that I don't know.
Yeah. And the New River, folks, if you don't know, the New River and the Gauley River, these are whitewater rafting. In some sections, obviously not the section you were in, Chuck, or class 5, right? World renowned whitewater rafting. So it's one of them's dam fed. And so, you know, it can get wild. I've been on it, been whitewater rafting. It's a blast. Great smallmouth fishing in other sections, but still a little wild and crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the section we were in was class 2s.
Okay.
Initially, when I made the post, I thought it was class 3. I edited that, but like I said, I have very, very little experience in whitewater. But anyway, so what happened was Wade was running lead, and I followed him down the first rapid, or it might have been the second rapid, because the first rapid, you know, it was a new boat. I had never been in the Bonafide SS 107 before. Never been in the river condition in that type of situation. So I was still trying to get the feel for everything and get my paddle stroke right. And I got sideways on like a ledge. and I'm basically moving my weight over to the opposite side so that I don't roll this way off the ledge, because the water's coming and it's pushing me. But I'm just trying to get off the ledge so I can turn and get back going straight.
All right.
So I came down the second rapid, and Wade had eddied out to the left and caught this eddy back here. And being inexperienced, I didn't have a plan going through that second rapid. So when I got down there, I seen Wade. I'm like, oh, let me get over there.
All
Well,
right.
then I seen that ledge to my right. And I remembered the situation on the first one. And so now I'm going, 90 degrees this way. I seen that ledge. I'm like, oh, man, let me go to the opposite side and catch the opposite eddy. That way I'm not, interfering with Wade, and I'm not going to get stuck on that ledge and flip over.
Right.
So I did a rudder stroke and pulled my kayak around. And as soon as I did that, I leaned just a little bit to the right, just enough to where the current caught the edge of that kayak, and it just
sucked it right down.
It just dumped me right out. It's like, here you go, baptized.
No, if you don't river fish a whole lot, for those of you listening in, it is wildly dangerous. I think I know people underestimate the power of moving water, right? So if you're going down the New River, and I remember this when I was whitewater rafting it, there are plaque after plaque after plaque on these boulders for when people that's where they died, right? They get caught under them, they get pinned. It's people just think they're going to be able to pull their leg out if you get caught between the two rocks. No, sir.
Yep.
It's highly unforgiving. It's insane what moving water can do. And a lot of times you can just sit there and listen to the boulders that are being just moved at the bottom when the water's moving that fast. It is absolutely wild. But you're okay.
Oh,
It was controlled. But still, it's it's wild. River fishing is wild.
It's one of those things where in order to grow in life, you always have to push the limits, right? But you don't want to get too carried away and push the limits too far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like class 2, I think was pretty good to start out in for somebody like me without having river experience, but having a lot of stability and, kayak experience offshore. Plus I had Wade Clemens instruction. And he's been going through and getting ACA certified as an instructor as well. So it was a good thing,
What's ACA certified for those listening in?
It is the American Canoe and Kayak Association.
Mm-hmm.
They've been around for over 100 years, and their mission is to teach people the skills needed to stay safe. So anybody kayaking or kayak fishing, I think, should definitely look into like a level 1, whether it's coastal or river.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to teach you basically, basic paddle strokes, and most importantly, self-rescue and assisted reentry. Those, that's very important, especially if you're nervous about getting out there and practicing by yourself.
Sure.
And anybody in the Northeast Ohio area, I mean, you can always call me. We can set up a date to hit the river. I'll always teach you how to get back in your boat, because I'm thankful that you want to learn how.
Yeah.
And see how important it is,
100%. 100%. I got a couple more other questions for you, Chuck. We're through here. One, Seth Taylor says, I love the Bucky sweatshirt, Darren. Heck yeah. Seth's on my team for the Knucklehead. By the way, and I'm not sure if I shared it. I did a live coming home from it, but I didn't do it like a formal live. But we ended up picking up 4th place, which is kind of, it's not bad.
Nice.
We were one big fish away from first, and I can count probably on 5 different occasions. If we would have landed, one of my team members would have landed the big bass, and we would have been in first. It was that close. So we lost the monsters, but hey, that's fishing, right? And that's tournaments, and that's the way it goes. So congrats to Team Eric Jackson for taking the win. I think it was followed up by Greenfish 2, followed up by Fluke Master, and then we were about a 3/4 of an inch behind Fluke Master. But it was a blast, and look forward to doing that again next year. A question from Matt Dillon. Chuck, do you carry a throw ring or a throw cushion on your kayak?
I don't carry either. I've considered a throw bag, but at the end of the day, I always have rope with me. So if I needed to throw something, I could just grab that rope. But whenever I'm out with clients, I'm right there with them.
Yep.
I don't really. It's nice on a boat when you have that high gunwale when you can't really reach down into the water.
Yep.
But with my kayak, like even when I rescued that jet skier that was sinking, I basically pulled him right onto the front of my kayak. So I don't really have to reach down or.
You just glossed over that story. You rescued a jet skier that was sinking. What?
Oh yeah,
I didn't know about that one.
brand new jet ski that was taken.
No.
Yeah, had 10 hours on it, I think.
Oh, jeez.
But
Where'd you find him or her?
It was off of Lorraine Harbor,
Okay.
on the other side of the break wall. It's the full stories on my podcast as well.
There you go, folks.
Really great guy. He wasn't out there being unsafe. He had his life jacket on. He had just been fishing on his boat, so he forgot his VHF radio in the boat. Usually did carry one of those, but it was just one of those situations, being in the right place at the right time and having the ability to help.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to do that without the my Torpedo 1103 on the back, because I can hook up to these sinking vessels or somebody in distress, and we might be moving slow, 2.5, 3 mile an hour, depending on how heavy. But in the meantime, we're gaining ground and getting closer to the Coast Guard or Harbor Patrol.
Yeah. Awesome. Another question coming in from Ryan Fuller. Safety communication device. Recommendations?
As far as like brands and stuff like that.
I think that's what the spirit of the question was.
All right. I don't think you can really go wrong with any VHF brand, as long as I try to stay away from the knockoffs. So go with the reputable brand. I personally use Standard Horizon. Unidem, they make a decent radio. Cobra makes a decent radio. The ones that I like is the HX890, which it just has extra features. So when you look at these, you're going to see radios somewhere around $100 to $125. And then you're going to see them jump up to, $200 plus.
Okay.
And basically some of it is wattage. You want at least 5 watts, maybe 6 watts. I think 6 watts is the most that you're going to get. And the higher the wattage, the longer your range. When you get into the more expensive ones, they just have some added features. Like the HX890 has my GPS coordinates on the face of the radio. It also has a distress button with DSC, which is stands for I forget what it stands for. But basically what it does is it sends your GPS coordinates to the Coast Guard, as long as, it works off a line of sight. So as long as you're not too far from the Coast Guard station or the antennas that you're trying to send that signal to, it should get there.
Okay.
And then I back that up with my personal locator beacon, which is a ACR Rescue Link View. There's a couple different companies that make personal locator beacons. I would say ACR is at the top.
Okay.
And then there's another little one. I can't think of the name. It's a little bit smaller, kind of like a square pack like that. A little bit more affordable, a little bit less features.
Okay.
But, at the end of the day, it's going to get the job done as well.
All right. So I want to switch gears on us a little bit. Thank you so much for walk. I can't believe we're already 43 minutes into this show. Let's switch gears over to some of the fish you like to catch, right? Because I know in Lake Erie, I believe there's walleye, steelhead, smallmouth, catfish, white bass, sheephead, yellow perch, I think long-nosed gar. There's a lot, right? And so what is because you guide everybody, if you didn't know that, if you haven't picked up on that yet. He guides on Lake Erie. He's got his own website, lakeeriekayakfishing.com. Go check him out. But what's your favorite to catch? How do you catch them? Like, what are the? I mean, I'm sure they're all in different places, and so I mean, Lake Erie is a big lake. So if you don't know how to pattern these things, you're gonna come up short. Which is another service you provide, right? You can set some time up with you. You can be like, hey, this is where they're at. This is what you're catching them on. So if you're coming up, you don't fish very often. And you're like, hey, I don't want to take the risk of getting skunked. Well, you can reach out to Chuck because Lily does what he does for a living. So take it away there on that question for me.
Yep. Yeah, I can definitely help make your trip a lot more successful, whether it's with me or just through a coaching call. Favorite fish species? It changes, and I think it's because repetition, it kind of takes a little bit of the enjoyment out over time. So by the time steelhead season comes around, I can't wait to stop fishing for walleye and get on those steelhead.
Right.
It's a different type of tactic. It's a different type of fishing, and the fish are a lot more aggressive. Now with the walleye stuff, I enjoy catching a walleye. But really it's less the fight and it's more all the different small details along the way that have made this fish, the trip successful with this fish.
Because walleye isn't a crazy fight.
No, not most times. Now, sometimes I will catch a walleye that, I'm like, man, that's gotta be a sheephead. It's fighting like a sheephead. It's, digging and shaking like a sheephead, and then you get it up and it's a monster walleye. So there are some that do fight really hard, and they're beautiful fish and they taste delicious.
Yes.
Now when the long-nosed gar come in, and they're patternable, I've really been enjoying them.
I love gar. I just love how they look, man. They're such freaking awesome looking fish.
They really are, and they're so
like dinosaurs.
They're
like
so
I caught a freaking dinosaur. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and I'm throwing a rope fly, so I'm not using. You can use like live bait on a circle hook, and there's a process you gotta, because they come in and kill the bait fish first, or at least wound it.
Okay.
And then they'll come in for a second attack, and that's when they actually eat the fish. So if you're fishing with live bait, you want to wait after that first strike and wait till they start actually eating it. That way you get that circle hook in the back, because anywhere on the bill, it's solid bone.
Right. You're not going to set that. You're
Right.
going to miss it. Okay. So you said a rope fly. Is that where you kind of get it stuck in their teeth? Is that kind of the idea behind? Okay. Explain that to people, because I've heard people talk about it. I've never fished that strategy before.
So a rope fly doesn't necessarily mean like fly fishing.
Right.
You can, obviously, I think that would be actually a blast, because a lot of times, you're sight fishing for them. But anything can be a rope fly. If you think about it, how many times have you thrown like a spinner bait or a crankbait or something like that, and you keep getting hit, or maybe you see the gar follow it.
Yeah.
It's attracted to it. You can turn that into a rope fly with a simple fly tying kit, and some nylon rope. Or if you don't want to go that far, you could take the inners of your paracord, that nylon rope there, and just tie it into a knot and put it on a hook. I had a client catch a 36-incher on a Ned rig head and a piece of paracord that was tied in a knot, put on the hook, because that's all I had. And he had an awesome day. Was an older guy, and he's like, man, this is the best day of fishing I've ever had. And I remembered seeing the gar the day before, and we're on the way back. I'm like, all right, well, we might as well finish it out with a bang, So I'm over there like trying to find whatever I had on the kayak to make this lure, and handed it to him. He probably thought I was nuts.
Yeah, right.
But man, within 3 minutes that fish was on.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was an awesome time.
Nolan in here, he's saying 28 incher is a heck of a good one. Congrats on that bad boy.
On what, the gar?
I think the gar, yeah. I mean, help everyone kind of understand, because most people, I would say, don't walleye fish, don't long nose gar fish.
Yeah.
And so what's a really good walleye? What's a really good sheephead? What's a really good gar, like trophy fish?
So the long-nosed gar, if I remember correctly, I believe it was 34 inches or 36 inches. It was actually a Fish Ohio for him.
Okay. Explain Fish Ohio for people, because it's kind of obviously unique to Ohio.
Yeah.
And with pins and all this.
And, depending on which state you live in, I'm trying to find this picture for you guys. Depending on which state you live in, they have similar programs where they just reward the angler. And it's a little bit of a couple things. Number one, they're getting data on the fishery, right? Because you're turning in your fish. You're not necessarily giving them GPS locations or anything like that, but general vicinity of where it was caught. And in return, they're giving you maybe a cool certificate or a patch, or like Ohio does the Fish Ohio pins.
Yep. And
just commemorates your catch. And in Ohio, if you get 4 different species, you get like a master angler pin.
Yep.
So it's great for kids or people that they're new to the fishery, or they're evolving as an angler, and it's a way to challenge yourself. As far as a walleye, so the Lake Erie Walleye Fall Brawl is going on right now, and the Walleye Slam, which is biggest walleye tournaments in the world.
Oh wow!
They go on for a month and a half, and unfortunately, it's too late to register, so you can't get in this year. But you could definitely get in next year. I think it's $35 to register. Month and a half long fishing, and both tournaments, first and second place. I think this year they're both boats. I think the Fall Brawl is a 622 Ranger, fully outfitted, and second place is a 621 Ranger. So just to give you a scope of things, it's a $130,000 boat for first place, and maybe $120,000 for second place, and third place generally down is cash. So for a $35 entry fee, it's a great way to get out there and have some fun with your buddies, your family. But back to the cold water stuff. Remember,
really quick before you hop out of that conversation, Cleveland's known for walleye fishing. Unfortunately, not in a good way. Was that the same tournaments that the weights and fish fiasco last year, or connected?
Well, the Lake Erie Walleye Trail and the Walleye Fall Brawl are owned by the same guy. But that was during the Lake Erie Walleye Trail Championship, I believe 2 years ago, 2022. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe my eyes when Jason cut those fish open and those weights fell out. I mean, they were the size of an egg. You take an egg that's lead, 8 pounds of lead and 5 fish.
Gosh.
But the silver lining of all that is we got rid of some trash that didn't belong in the fishing industry.
Yeah, 100%.
There's gonna be bad people everywhere, unfortunately. But we got rid of them. We got back to the community stuff that it's about. Because Lake Erie Walleye Trail and the Fall Brawl, I mean, you do it with your family. There's women's event or women's divisions and kids divisions, and it's a way to get out there and enjoy the sport with your family. So there's no room for that other stuff. But what I was going to say, back to that cold water stuff, if you are going to go out there and compete or go out and catch trophy walleye this time of year, remember the water temperature is below 60 degrees. I believe it's rated like 61 last time I checked. So just be prepared for that. Maybe wear your life jacket if you're on a boat, even if you're on a boat, because when things go wrong, you only have a handful of minutes in that water before that's it.
Yeah.
And the one thing, people have fallen out of boats many times over the years and went under and never came back up. There's a term for that. It's always been called the sudden disappearance syndrome. And a lot of times it's because the water temperature is so cold. When they fall out without a life jacket, they gasp and they fill their lungs with water, and then they just sink down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, what do they say? Lake Superior never gives up its dead, right? Because the water never gets above 46 degrees.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Here.
it's freaking cold.
So just take that into account. Even if you are on a boat, I personally feel way more safe and prepared on my kayak than on any big boat. Just because I can handle any situation in the kayak. On a boat, there's a point of no return when the only option is to be rescued.
Right.
So take that into account and be safe. Maybe go out with a buddy, meet some people. If you're going to be out there, fish near one or two of your buddies, have a radio. So if something does happen, they're right there. We look out for each other out there. And, when somebody's in need, jump in action and have fun.
So switching gears a bit, no, 100%. Great. Thank you for sharing all that stuff. I think it's super important. I think people have a tendency to be like, oh, here we go, the life jacket conversation again. Good. That's exactly what it's supposed to be, because there's still a lot of people not wearing them. And unfortunately, in Ohio, the law isn't that you have to wear it. The law is that you just have to have it on your vessel, which does you zero good when it's shoved up into your hatch underneath a ton of stuff.
Right.
You don't, it's not like when you leave the life jackets when you can't swim. That's the whole point. Having it shoved on, it's bizarre to me, our laws that we have here in Ohio, and it's different for every state.
And I want to say one thing to everybody that's listening. Like I'm not here to tell you what to do. It's your life and your decision. I'm just here to share some insight with you and some things to think about, so that you can make the right decision for yourself and your family. It's not my job to police you or babysit you or preach to you. I'm just trying to share my knowledge, my experience, and the lessons I've learned over the years, so that you can increase your knowledge.
No, 100%. So walleye, steelhead, smallmouth, catfish, white bass, sheephead, yellow perch, longnose gar. What's your favorite? Like right now?
Right now, definitely steelhead.
Okay.
But I do enjoy going out early mid-January, and catching monster walleye.
Look at you. So he's saying mid-January. Mid-January is freaking cold around here. I mean, it's like
it is very cold.
It's stupid cold. So you like extreme weather fishing, which I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes mid-January, I'm start jonesing for a fish around here. Yeah. I'm telling you what, January, February, March, it is a painful time for us Northeast Ohio, those who live up here. And so I might just call you up, Chuck. Like, I need a monster walleye in mid-January. I didn't even know that was even an option, to be completely honest with you. So how do you catch? I mean, what's a monster walleye? Like 25 north?
25 well, the fish that'll the fish that'll probably take first place in the two tournaments is probably going to be 13 and a half, 14 pounds.
How many inches is that?
Maybe, depending on the fish, 32,
26,
34.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow. That's big walleye.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big fish.
Yeah.
My personal best was it was 31 and a half inches, but it was only 10 and a half pounds. So it was springtime. It had already spawned out. In the fall, what happens is these walleye come close to shore because they're following the shad, and they're just gorging themselves on shad. They're putting that winter feed bag on. So the difference between the weight on a fish in, say, early October compared to catching the same fish in January is significant.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Mid-January fishing. I'm serious. It's going to happen because
I have an extra Coquetat dry suit. I don't know if you'll fit into a large, but
I do. Look at that. It was meant to be, folks. Meant to freaking be. I love it. And I'll probably have to rent one of your kayaks as well, because I'm not sure my bona fide P127 is probably the kayak that you would take. Maybe not.
I mean, the 127 does okay out there.
Yeah.
But I have a native Titan X torpedo powered that you could jump in. It just makes life easy.
No, 100%. I like it. What's your PB GAR?
My PB GAR, I think was, I I think it was out of Center Hill Lake in Tennessee, actually.
Okay.
That one was either 34 or 36 inches. I think my
Okay.
client's was 36 inches and mine was 34.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always nice when your client gets an absolute monster.
Oh
Right.
yeah. You know, that's why we guide. You know, it's obviously we love fishing, but you know, a good guide. I would rather watch my clients catch fish all
Yeah.
day than me catch a fish. I've caught plenty. But being able to sit back over, you know, my trips are 6 hours. So over the course of 6 hours, I'm basically vomiting all kinds of information on you and knowledge, you know. So over the course of 6 hours, I get to watch that progression as an angler and watch them get everything dialed in,
Mm.
you know. And hey, maybe they catch the biggest walleye, you know, of their life to date, or the biggest catfish, or you know, whatever they want to catch.
I mean, that's why a lot of us do YouTube channels, right? And a lot of times I will celebrate it if you're on one of my channels. If someone says, "Hey, I tried out what you told me, it worked, and I caught my personal best." I was like, "This is why I do this,"
Oh
right?
yeah,
Or you might think I'm in it for the money, I'm in it for the gear, I'm in it for the occasional sponsorship. I ultimately, at the end of the day, the number one piece of satisfaction that I get is that you have become a better angler because of something that I was able to teach.
yeah.
Right. That's the joy of a teacher right there. And so that's awesome. What's the, I got, we're coming to our end of our time here, but I got a couple more questions for you. Then I want you to kind of share a little bit of how would someone would reach out to you and what that looks like. I know you shared that you do 6 hour. We'll get to that at the end. Right now, what are the top 3 questions that you get as Chuck Earls, Lake Erie Kayak Fishing.com?
First question would probably be uh, if I take out newbies or people that are inexperienced. And the question of that is absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I tailor each trip specifically to whoever I'm taking out for the day. So your comfort level, your experience, you know, I'm not going to take somebody that's never been kayak fishing out in, you know, 2 footers.
Right.
That's going to be a calm day. We'll get them dialed in on the kayak, get them comfortable, and also get the basic safety and preparation foundation built, you know, because really you don't ever want to get comfortable or complacent out there. But the more that you know and the more that you understand about the body of water, the less fear there is, because you're prepared for that stuff. You know, so anybody from never been kayak fishing or never been fishing before to, you know, somebody that's been fishing their whole life, and Lake Erie's a bucket list.
Yeah.
Second kayak would be
Real quick before you jump into that, tell me one of your most rewarding client stories that you've ever had that you just remember.
So I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 4. I had a 4-person group. They were high school buddies, hadn't all been together for 25 years.
Oh wow! All right, so they're like my age.
Yeah, you know, they were
40 somethings.
they were coming into town for a class reunion, and the guy that lives here locally, you know, he just wanted to do something special. Well, one of them had never been kayaking, was terrified of the water. Felt really bad for the guy, but you know, his friends weren't going to let him not go.
Right.
So they were forcing him. You know, I took a little extra care to make sure that he was comfortable, and like I put him in the Old Town Sportsman 120.
Bigger kayak. Yep.
It's a pretty stable kayak, especially for somebody inexperienced. You know, he would have to seriously make a mistake to go in the water. But he got really comfortable, you know, after, I don't know, probably 30, 45 minutes out there. He was feeling pretty good. But the guy that had booked the trip, I would say he's probably my best student.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, at this point, he's came out with me I don't know, numerous times, and he really takes all the safety stuff serious. So that trip, that was his first time kayak fishing as well, and it was a little bumpy at one point, maybe 1 footers. He had made a mistake, ended up in the water, and it was 61 degrees, so it was a little chilly. I got him back in the kayak real quick, and back to fishing. But he's told me numerous times that's the reason why he's so safe and he takes all that stuff seriously, because he flipped over out there and, I could see the panic in his eyes. He didn't know where he was, what he was going to do. It's deer in the headlights look, anybody that's never practiced reentry, they're just going to grab that other side of the kayak and roll it over with him.
Right.
So he's he's my best student for sure. Right. And I'd say that's probably, there's too many memorial.
See, you went safety on me. I thought you were going to go, homie caught the biggest fish of his life and was just ecstatic. That's where I thought you were going with that, to be honest with you.
Well, I already said that, but the long-nosed gar.
All right, long-nosed gar. All right, right on.
I'm going to use that story.
Yeah. Do you ever get skunked out there guiding?
Of course, everything, it is fishing.
Yeah.
But it's also Lake Erie. And if you know what you're doing and you have preparations for everything, chances are you're going to at least catch some fish.
Yeah.
A lot of times I don't fish when I'm guiding. I want to be 100% focused on the client. That way I can give advice and work through their struggles.
Yep.
And a lot of times, I'm looking at them and I might chuckle because I remember me doing the exact same thing,
Yep.
and I give them a tip, and they fix that problem real quick and they get dialed in. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer or the conditions are a little tougher. So, near the end of the day, I might end up dropping some lines just to try to get some extra fish to make sure that they go home with at least with, a couple of fish to eat or hopefully their limit of 6.
Right.
But, just like any body of water, sometimes the fish just don't cooperate. But it is very rare.
Yeah, it happens. It's fishing.
I can't pick up and move 40, 50 miles like the boat guys can to get on active fish.
Oh, I love it. Other questions you get? I'm curious. Any major questions that you get outside of as Chuck Earls? Like, what are you kind of known for? Lake Erie kayak fishing. I know you do rigging, you do repairs. You get a lot of people coming to you with cracked kayaks and this and that.
Yeah, motorizations, fish finder installs, stuff like that. I also, talk a lot about cold water safety and stuff. So I answer a lot of questions on getting people in dry suits and prepared for that. I am ACA certified instructor as well. So I do, paddling strokes and self-rescue classes and dry suit testing as well. If you get a dry suit and you want to get out there and test it, just reach out to me. We'll put something together and we'll go hit the water and have some fun safely.
Yeah, I've seen you doing that in like literally ice water. There's literally ice in the water.
Yeah.
Wild. All right, last thing I want to end on, because we are coming to the end of our time. Those of you listening on the podcast, because I'll rip the live and make it a podcast, is that you're wearing a USA kayak fishing hat. We never got around to this, but share, you were on that team, right, this year. This past year, the USA won gold, which is pretty awesome. And I'm not entirely sure what you guys won. So, one, walk me through, what is this USA kayak fishing team? How do you get on the team? Where is it at, and how does it all play out, and who you're fishing against? I'm really curious because I don't know.
So it's a really cool thing. Basically, what USA kayak fishing is, or US angling rather, because US angling is the
parenting body.
Right, they're the brand that basically is doing everything on the back end. trying to get fishing into the Olympics. That's the ultimate goal.
Come on now.
So FIPSID and FIPS, I think it is, they're the international governing body. So they're the ones that, kind of control where these locations are. They do all the back end to put this international tournament series together. And there's many different disciplines. There's kayak fishing. There's actually a freshwater and a saltwater team now.
Okay.
There's street fishing. There's
street fishing,
which is like shore fishing.
Got it.
Over in Europe, they call it street fishing because you're generally fishing urban areas, canals and stuff like that. Yep. They have fly fishing teams. They have feeder fishing, carp fishing. I think there's a surf fishing. You can just Google FIP or FIPSED.
Okay.
I believe, and then SIPS SIPS. And that should bring you up the international governing body, or you can go over to US Angling, their website, where you can get yourself a cool hat like this or some other swag, which goes to support some of these teams.
Okay.
Or you can even, become a member and apply and see what you have to do to get a chance to, go overseas or even fish here and represent your country. But that's not the coolest part.
Well, really quick before you move on to this, I'm on their website right now, FIPSAD, and there's street fishing, and it's literally these guys are almost like at a beginning of a race. They have all their fishing gear on, and they're running to their favorite spots.
Oh yeah,
yes. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to see if I can show it for those of you who are in. Okay.
Last year we were in Italy, in
oh really?
Mantua, which is Lombardia district.
Okay.
And one of the guys on Team England like spilled right in front of me, and you know how things happen in slow motion when shit hits the fan.
Uh-huh.
And it was like I'm running right next to him, and he's sliding, going full speed with me. And I looked over and I said, "Are you okay?" And he, sliding on the ground's like, "I'm okay." And I just, okay, kept on running. But that's how it is. It's because if you don't get to your spot, dude, somebody else is, is going to be
there.
It
is.
Be there all day.
There it is, right there. Literally in the streets. It keeps toggling back and forth. But yeah, that's funny. All right, keep going. How do you get on these teams? How does that work?
So what I was going to say, the coolest thing about these international tournaments is you're sharing your passion with people from all over the world who are some of the best anglers in the world. Mm-hmm. They've qualified, they've went through the paces and earned their spot. And the camaraderie and the love that's in that environment, it's like nothing else I've ever experienced. So if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about it, even if you don't think you're a good enough angler, just try it, give it a shot. We miss 100% of the shots that we don't take, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that everybody deserves to experience that, to stand on the stage, wearing the Team USA jersey while the national anthem is playing, or to carry the flag parading through the city in the Parade of Nations, or to build that international fishing family with people all over the world. So definitely take the leap. But if you go over to the US Angling website, I believe they have the instructions to qualify for the different teams. I know the USA Kayak Fishing team is pulling from the Bass Circuit now, and maybe one or two other ones. So you have to be competing in that circuit or those circuits to qualify for the qualifier.
Even for kayak fishing?
Yep. If you do good enough, then you get invited to the qualifier, and then if you do good enough on the qualifier, you end up being one of the handful of people that are going over for the year to represent the USA.
Okay.
And there's also kids teams. There's women's teams like women's fly fishing, I think pretty much every discipline has, like the women's division and the kids division. It's just a really, really cool thing, especially for the youth. Like the street fishing theme, you want to think that's where we all started, right? We all started fishing from shore.
From shore, right?
So it's a great way to kind of get the youth and people that are just kind of getting into the sport and don't have, all the bells and whistles that some of us have acquired over the years.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, let's get ready. Let's land this plane a little bit, but I'm interested. How does someone get a hold of you? What are some of the things that you offer? This is the time where I actually want you to sell yourself. What do you? Because I believe that what you offer, it could really be beneficial for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I offer the Lake Erie kayak fishing guided adventures. And obviously we get out there, we catch fish, but the main premise is to teach you how to be safe out there while doing it. That way, once you're safe and you're comfortable and you have the knowledge, you can venture out and do it by yourself.
Yep.
I also do kayak rigging and repair, pretty much anything and everything, even small vessels like micro skiffs and solo skiffs and stuff. During the wintertime, I do a lot of expos, and I put on in-person seminars, generally at least one a day, sometimes two a day, on a variety of subjects, kayak fishing tips, Lake Erie kayak fishing, cold water, kayak rigging. If there's a presentation or some knowledge that you want to see in a presentation, just shoot me a message, give me a call, and I'll put something together for you. I also do the ACA instructor classes, classes to make instructors. I'm not an instructor trainer. I'm just an instructor, so I can teach you how to, get dialed in on that aspect as well.
All right. There you go, folks.
To get a hold of me, you can call me at 216-296-9157 or send a text. You can go over to my website, LakeErieKayakFishing.com, on the bottom of the screen there. You can email me through there or access my social media. You can find me on all the social media channels and send me a message that way as well. But the easiest, fastest, quickest way is definitely just calling or texting my phone. Everything else, there's so much. Sometimes things get buried, and I always feel bad when I don't find a message for a month.
Yeah, I've been there. So I hear you. So if you're jonesing around mid-January up here in Northeast Ohio and you want to catch a big walleye, give Chuck a call. Chuck, appreciate you hopping on the live tonight. We're gonna rip this and make it into a podcast. It'll go another. Some of my podcasts go 1,000 listens, so this will be good. It'll get some reach for you. Thank you for bringing the juice tonight. There's a lot that I learned I did not know, so thank you. Appreciate that. And next week, guys, we're gonna have World's Worst Fishing on. So if you don't know him, he's a massive bait maker. I've had him on before, and we're going to be talking about how realistic is too realistic when it comes to lure. She gets that question often. Should be a good time. So I'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. Thank you so much, Chuck. You have a great rest of the day. Thank you all. You have a great night and a great rest of the week.